Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Thomas. For the record, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an attorney licensed to practice in Massachusetts. My reason for making this video is actually a cover for what I'm really trying to accomplish. But first, let me explain that if you're here for a pure makeup tutorial, I'm sorry, but that is not what this is. I am definitely not a makeup professional by any means. I definitely love to spend way too much money on makeup, and I often find myself watching a tutorial here or there, but really the makeup is not the point of the video at all. What I'm really trying to do is empower victims of domestic violence who are stuck at home with their abusers. As we all know, right now, the vast majority of us are experiencing mandatory stay-at-home orders due to the coronavirus, and that has already proven itself to be a very dangerous situation for those stuck at home. So I just wanted to use my privilege as an attorney, as well as my experience working with domestic violence survivors, to put some good out there and to help put some power back into your hands. This is meant to be an inconspicuous way of getting information about domestic violence. Before I get into the more dense stuff, I wanted to do a quick commentary on leaving abusive relationships. I believe our normal human logic may seem to indicate to us that the most reasonable way to avoid an abusive relationship is just to leave once you realize you're in one, but DV activists everywhere understand that leaving this kind of situation can be impossible or just plain dangerous, and by DV I do mean domestic violence. In fact, leaving the relationship can often be the most dangerous time for someone in that situation, and it can often be lethal as well. While a goal for someone may be to leave their abuser, it's not everyone's goal for very valid reasons, and obviously including self-preservation. So if you are a loved one of someone in an abusive relationship and you're watching this to figure out ways to help them, the number one thing I want you to understand is that abuse is all about power, and one of the best ways to put power back into your loved one's hands when they're dealing with this is to respect decisions that they make, including if the decision is to stay with the person abusing them. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what's called the cycle of violence theory. In a large amount of cases, and by large amount I do mean about 45% of cases, abuse tends to happen in a cycle. There are 3 stages to the cycle of violence theory, those 3 stages being the honeymoon period, the tension building period, and then the acute explosion. The following breakdown of the cycle is definitely generalized, and of course every situation is unique and so are the players. But if the description of the cycle seems familiar to you, I urge you to really stop and think about how these situations play out in your own life. Doing this can help you realize your situation in a way that positions you to eventually end this cycle. The first stage of this cycle is called the honeymoon period. This stage is everything that you think it is. This is a time where the abuser breaks out the roses, they start making excuses for their bad behavior, they beg for forgiveness, they say it will never happen again. They pull all the stops they know will get to you, whether it's compliments, gifts, or even getting family members involved just to get you to forgive them. They downplay the violence they perpetrated against you. That punch barely hit you. Please don't overreact. They may refer to it as an incident, a momentary loss of judgment. The things they said to you, they didn't mean it. It was just a joke. And now, of course, you're the one who's taking it too far. So after the honeymoon period, then comes the building tension period. This is when the abuser starts to do things like drinking heavily or doing drugs, things that you know will lead to a bad situation. They might even start nitpicking at you. They might start putting you down. May start even threatening you. At this point, The victim may try to ease the tension, and they can do this by just trying to make their abuser happy. Maybe instead of trying to make their abuser happy, they just retreat inward and stay quiet, try to stay as out of the way as possible. Now, if there are any rules to the relationship, whatever those rules are, they will start to be very strictly enforced during the building tension period. Maybe the abuser has strict rules on who you contact. Maybe they see a text message pop up on your phone with a name they don't recognize. Suddenly, the rules were in full play and you're in trouble. This building tension then leads to the third stage, which is the acute explosion. Again, exactly what you think it means. This is where the abuser begins to become physical or emotionally violent towards their partner. This is where the hitting comes in, the physical restraining, even the name calling, the yelling, and sometimes much worse than that. Now that I've briefly discussed the cycle of violence theory, how can you apply it? There's a lot that can be done with this information, but here is how I like to use it in practice. First, I like to use the cycle as a means of getting my client to understanding that this could happen to anyone, and what happened here was not their fault. They were caught in a cycle of manipulation that includes violence. Now, I don't mean to speak for everyone who has ever experienced this, but when overcoming my run-ins of sexual violence, I often thought to myself that there were things that I did that led me to situations that harmed me. For some reason, it felt easier for me to say that I could have done better that time and could do better next time. Seeing the cycle of violence theory illustrated as a wheel for the first time really opened my eyes to the fact that what happened to me and what happens to so many other people like me was not because of something that I did. I was caught in a continuous wheel of manipulation, as a lot of you guys are as well. The people who harmed me used their power against me to make themselves more powerful, and it did take some time for me to reclaim my power, and it is a process. But the first and most important part is understanding the cycle, so that way you put yourself in a position, like I said earlier, to end that cycle. Our feelings and our motives are very complicated, and for that reason, it's sometimes hard to gain clarity, even when it's something that's happening to you, or processing something that's happening to you. I found that breaking this down in a wheel helps break down the experience in a way that helps us understand everything piece by piece. The particular wheel that I'm referring to, I actually got from an organization who I will link in my bio, but there are so many other illustrations just like this out there, and I will include links to those as well. But if this is starting to break through to you, I would definitely encourage you to check out some of these other wheels and just dig up some more information wherever you can find it. The second way that I have personally used and have urged my clients to use the cycle of violence theory in their own life is just to contemplate the ways by which their abuser exerts power over them. In practice, as an attorney, my role is somewhat limited to what I can achieve for my client in court. So things like restraining orders, criminal charges, divorces, property division, custody, these are all things that I can help my client navigate in court. What I went to school for, essentially. But there are things that are critical to achieving these court-based goals that I cannot determine for my client. The choices they will have to make are personal, and this includes things like what to ask the court to do for them when they get in front of the judge, what damages to ask the court to award them considering the situation, managing expectations of court outcomes. Otherwise, without this, it becomes really difficult to be really realistic about what can be done in court. And these questions require my client to really analyze the ways in which their abuser has been exerting power over them and how to use the court process to get their power back. For example, is the abuser controlling your finances? Financial control is definitely a common method of exerting power over victims. And this could come in the form of secret bank accounts, making large financial decisions without their partner, doing things to sabotage their credit scores. Maybe they don't allow their partner to have a job. But understanding that part of the relationship's abusive dynamic will help the victim make decisions about what to ask in court. Should the court order alimony in your case, considering your lack of opportunity to work or go to school? Do you need help creating a parenting plan that includes time for you to pursue a career? Do you need a restraining order to make sure that you can even get through the rest of the school year? I have another wheel for this concept. At this point, we're talking a wheel within a wheel, but this wheel is called the power and control wheel. And the power and control wheel that I am currently referencing was created by the Domestic Abuse Intervention Project, which is an organization out of Minnesota. I like that one a lot, but again, there are a ton of different illustrations out there like that. So if you want to research this more, please reference some of the links in the bio that I will include, and maybe you'll see something specifically on that soon. So the last way that I use the cycle of violence theory is really a method of planning for your safety. Understanding the cycle can be used in this way. If you've ever worked with a social worker or even an attorney, they probably helped you develop a safety plan, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a plan to help secure your safety if you're dealing with violence. I mentioned earlier that some victims were able to anticipate violence from their partner by checking out their facial expressions. Sometimes they can even feel the tension building up early, and the tension would be so thick that, the explosion is a relief in some sort of way, even if it's violent. The way that you apply the theory is, what can you do in that moment when you start to realize that things are getting tense to ensure your own safety? Do you have a place to go when things start to get tense? How will your abuser react to things like you trying to leave the house, or getting served with a restraining order, or even being served with a notice to appear in court? If you have kids, what should the kids do if things start to get tense? How old are they? Can they use a phone? Do they have a place in the house that they can hide for a moment? Can you use code words with them to let them know what to do when the time is right? Similarly, do you have access to funding? Do you have means to seek therapy? Do you need a support group? Can your family get involved in any sort of way? These are all just a sample of questions that you can ask yourself when making a safety plan. I always say it is best to get professional help for these things, but that doesn't mean that you can't start doing this on your own. Think about the cycle critically. If there's a part of the build-up or honeymoon phase that seems familiar to you, explore that feeling and try to gain some insight on your own situation. It's very easy to get swept up in the cycle, but again, understanding the cycle can help you craft your own path to recovery. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really hope that it helps. If you know someone in need of this information, please feel free to send this to them and let them know that they should try to listen to this with headphones if they're in a precarious situation. If you hated this video or if you loved this video, feel free to let me know, especially if you love this video. Definitely reach out to me. I want to say, if you have any questions, feel free to also reach out. I will say that I am a licensed attorney, but only in the state of Massachusetts. So if you have a legal question, I would just keep that in mind. I wouldn't be able to answer your legal question, but perhaps I could help you find an organization near you that could help you. If you watched all of this and are still wondering what makeup products I use to do all this, I'm also happy to either post it in the bio or just send it to you personally. I don't know, whatever. This is my first time doing it. Oh, and no matter what, definitely going to plug the Etsy page for the person who made these fab earrings that I love so much. And that is quite enough posing. Thank you very much. Hope you guys liked it, and we'll watch my next video. Take care.